Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, ready to explore Magic Gathering, and we're going to be looking at the top 10 giants. That's right. There's actually quite a bit of giants in the Magic world, and let's begin with the top 10 giants. Now, at number 10, which we have, I had to just throw this card in here, is Axelrod Gunnar Arsen. Man, it was hard to pronounce. It's from the series Legends. It's an uncommon, and boy, look at that mana cost. It costs 8 mana. Wow. So 8 mana to bring in that 5/5 trample, which says each time a creature is placed in the graveyard during a turn in which it is damaged, you gain 1 life, and it does 1 damage to target player. Yes, it is at number 10. I just had to throw that card in. So we're going to just move on to number 9, which we have the card Beanstalk Giant, and it's from Throne of Eldraine, and it's an uncommon, and it's really cool card because it has Fertile Footsteps, which is a sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield on shelf your library. Then later, you can play that Beanstalk Giant, and it has a power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control. And if you know anything, you're going to play every land as much as you can every turn. So that's card very, very good. So let's move on to number 8, which we have the card Bloodfire Colossus from Dual Decks Vinsir versus Koth, and it's a rare. And as you can see, it says sacrifice it to do 6 damage to each creature and each player. Wow, that's kind of like a mass destruction, but not white, but it's red, which is very impressive because at that point, when you have that 6 colorless and 2 red to play this card, you should have had that opponent very damaged. So maybe that 6 damage from this creature, or giant I should say, can really win the game. That's why it's there. And I like the saying. It says it took all its strength to contain the fire within, because it's a Bloodfire Colossus. I don't know. I thought that was quite amusing. So let's move on to number 7. And at number 7, we have Galecaster Colossus from the Commander 2017 series, and it is a rare. I really like this card because even though it costs 7 mana to play, it says tap and untap wizard you control. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. So if you basically have this card with a bunch of wizards, that can become quite annoying really, really, really fast. If you're able to keep all those wizards out, anything he has in play, boom, return it to its hand. So if you have like 8 wizards, again, I won't go on and on about it, you get the point. And it costs 5/6, so again, really, you're paying for its ability because that 5/6 for that 7 mana is totally not worth it. And the artwork actually for this card is really, really cool, so I thought that was a pretty added touch. So let's move on to number 6, which we have the card Earthshaker Giant. And believe it or not, if you haven't seen this card, it is from Game Night 2019 series, or I guess box, I suppose. And it's a mythic rare. And at the time, you could actually play this in regular Magic. And it says trample when Earth Giant enters the battlefield. Other creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. And it only costs 6 mana, so that's very good. 6 for a 6/6. It's generally pretty good and pretty standard. And then you give everything +3/+3 and trample on time of turn. Though it does be really more impressive if this card gave creatures haste as well. But we've had many of those cards in red, which is really cool. And the saying is also pretty cool. It says, "Come, my wild children, let's give the interlopers a woodland welcome." And as you can see in the picture, a bunch of wolves with that Earthshaker Giant. I thought it was really cool. And again, I think that's actually a pretty good card. So let's move on to number 5. And at number 5, halfway down our list, we have Realm Cloaked Giant from Throne of Eldraine series, and it's a mythic rare. And again, like most giants, it's here for its ability. As its ability cast off, it says, destroy all non-giant creatures. Well, it's really rare. I doubt anyone's ever built a giant deck. So this is basically clears everything on the board, which is really cool. And it costs 7 for that 7/7 Vigilance, which is also very impressive. Even though it's a mythic rare, it is not a legendary creature, so you can actually play a couple of these at the same time, which is very good. So you can play this, and if he keeps, then the opponent plays a bunch of creatures, play that non-giant, and play this again, over and over again. So let's move on to number 4. And at number 4, I decided to put Boldwyr Heavyweights. This is from the Morningtide series, and it's a rare. And this card is either it's going to work really, really well or work really, really horrible. As you can see, it costs 4 mana for that 8/8, which is really cool. It has trample as well. But it says when it comes into play, each opponent may search his or her library for a creature card and put it into play. So if that opponent has, I don't know, a 12/12 with abilities, this card's gonna really hurt you in the end. Obviously, it also says search when you search the library, you may shuffle it, which is of course standard in Magic. And the saying, again, I'm going to go by that again. It says, even if the giants bring nothing else on a journey, they bring in attention, which is totally true. That saying couldn't be any more perfect for a giant. Like I said, this is very, very good, the card. This is why it's at number 4. Again, it could backfire. So let's move on to number 3 then. Which we have the card Bonecrusher Giant from the Throne of Eldraine series, and it is rare. And I'm going to repeat myself. It's here because of its abilities, which is really cool. It has Stomp, which is an instant, which is really cool. And it says damage can't be prevented this turn. Stomp deals 2 damage to any target. Any target. So for 2 mana, that's very, very impressive. I think anyway. Then you have the 3 mana for this 4/3 creature. Again, in itself, you're paying 3 for that 4 power, which is very, very good. And the ability when you cast this creature, it says when it becomes a target of a spell, the giant deals 2 damage to that spell's controller. Again, another bonus added to this 3/4/3 giant. Very, very cool. Let's move on to number 2. At number 2, we have Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger from Theros Beyond Death, and it's a mythic rare, as you can see. And the ability says, when it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, each opponent discards a card. Then each opponent who didn't discard a non-land card this way loses 3 life. Wow, that's a that's really good. I like that. 2 for that 6/6, and escape is only 4. So even if you escape with 5 other cards, that's really cool. So if you make a red deck and you just shock, you can bring this guy out really fast, which is really cool. And there's other cards that can bring cards to the graveyard as well. This is why it's at number 2, because there's so many cards you can do to make this card escape. You can bring it out right away and then start making that person discard and lose 3 life. But there's one card that's the best of them all. So let's move on to number 1. At number 1, you see it. We have Crystalline Giant from Ikoria, Lair of the Behmoths, and it is a rare. Man, they really know how to make those series. I swear they're getting longer and longer. And wow, if you read this card, this is why it's here. At the beginning of your combat turn, choose a kind of counter at random that Crystalline Giant doesn't have on it from among Flying, First Strike, Death Touch, Hexproof, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance, and a +1/+1. Put a counter on that kind on that giant. Cost 3 for that 3/3. Very impressive. And then each turn it gets one of those abilities. Mind blown. That is why it is the best giant in all the Magic world. So if you like these videos, just watch the other more on the channel, and I hope you guys have a good day and a good evening.